We have a great Browns film breakdown show for you guys today, wrapping up minicamp as it is in Berea, winding down as we speak, and then a interview finally in our rookie introductory series with a fantastic resource on Shedeur Sanders. Covered him closely up in Colorado before everything turned around, and now can obviously guide us through some of that information around how the Sanders family and specifically Shedeur played a part in what has happened in Colorado football recently. So we got a great interview there. Some mini camp information. It's all coming next on the latest Browns film breakdown. All right, mini camp has wrapped up inside Berea, and it's really our last view of the team until they get back July 24th or so. We have to see some official announcements of when that's all going to take place, but that's when the window opens. So our last view of that, and there was some good to be seen. There was a lot of 11 on 11 red zone snaps in particular. If you check out my Twitter feed, and I will try to put this into some social platforms as well. If you're not following us on Instagram and TikTok and others, please rectify that. We're going to be pretty much everywhere this upcoming season, including Facebook as well. So just search Browns Film Breakdown and you'll be able to find it. But there's a great rep from Kenny Pickett on a seam and go down in the red zone where he does a great job of holding the right side, play side safety and Mike linebacker just for a split second, and coming back to Trey McKitty, the tight end, in that snap in the end zone. And there's some other good reps in there. There's a good snap from Dillon Gabriel, kind of climbing, working to the right side on a tight end, little option route where he can set down or kind of push away from who's in his invert area. Does a great job getting that football out through a window. And I actually think it was not a tight end in this regard. It was a wide receiver, Gage Lardavane, who keeps showing up, and I might mispronounce his name. He's going to force us to learn his name really well. Gage Lardavane, who's like I said, continue to pop up, continuing to make plays with his opportunities. It was a mix and match day, so a lot of quarterbacks going with different offensive line groups, and then obviously different skill position players in and out. You had Mike Woods was active out there today, and Cedric Tillman, both wide receivers, returned to join Deontay Johnson, Jerry Jeudy in the group out there. Sorting out who the depth chart is going to be at that position. Jamari Thrash continues to develop really well. And Kevin Stefanski reiterated today a nice camp for him so far, mini camp. Hopefully he can translate that to training camp and then a role for this season. But yeah, I think a pretty good day. A lot of team reps that happened, and they're winding things down. And as far as the videos goes, a little more limited than the first 2 days, but that's okay. We got to see Joe Flacco a little bit more active today, a couple throws. One got knocked down, which to me is stunning. A guy that size could get a pass knocked down. If you listen to recent chirping, it's all the Dillon Gabriel. Anytime a ball gets knocked down from Gabriel, that's the end of the world, right? But a little effort there. But the guys up front to make things difficult on Joe. But what are we learning from this? And I think the takeaway is, again, I've had this debate discussion with a lot of folks around minicamp statistics that get thrown out there. I saw this a few years ago. The Browns did those joint practices with Philly, and this could go on all over the league, and maybe we're not as privy to it as we should be. But there was a reporter, I'm not going to name the reporter, from the Eagles, who tracked like all of Jalen Hurts' stats throughout the training camp, mini camp portions of the season leading up. And I just thought it was the goofiest thing at the time, because there's so much nuance that is out there. Now, as the Browns are in this 4 quarterback situation, which is rare to have this sort of open format competition, like, it's obvious that tracking like a completion per attempts and the touchdown interceptions is such a silly way to go about this. Now, the only thing that you could take away from people who want to post these stats, and just in general, like the thing that I would take away is just, are guys getting reps in team periods? That's it. Now, if you're and I say team, that's 11 on 11, but also 7 on 7. Like, how many reps are they getting? I think that's the only thing that I would care about. I don't care about, and there are quotes about this from Kyle Shanahan dating back over the years. There's a lot of stuff on coaches who don't like this stuff as it has popped up. Now, I would just say, like, the only thing, again, I would take away from someone, and really it's ESPN Cleveland doing this. I'm not a fan of it because I think it creates a bunch of false narratives and a bunch of goofiness. But if they're doing it, the only thing I'm taking away is like, hey, is a guy getting some reps? That's a good number of throws for the day, et cetera, et cetera. Now, there could be reps a guy's getting, even inside of that thing I like, there could be reps guys are getting where they didn't throw it. Maybe they stepped out of the pocket, tried to run with the football in a certain situation because nobody was open, or a tackle whiffs on a guy coming up field and Could be any position. I don't mean to single out the tackles, but a defensive lineman gets after the quarterback and he can't throw it. That doesn't get counted as an attempt, and thus you don't know maybe the accurate number of how many reps happen. So obviously the nuance baked into all of this, which is, hey, what looks good as far as an attempts and a touchdown interception in practice misses so much nuance. Like, was it 7-on-7 where it's easier on the quarterback because the pass rush isn't serious? Was it 11-on-11 where things are amped up, more difficult? You're relying on your guys up front to give you time to throw. Was it with the first team? Was it with the second team? Was it with the straggling third team they put together? Was it in a period that invited advantages for the defense, such as the tight, low red zone, right? Even the basic high red zone is a challenge in the NFL where everything gets constricted, but was it the low red zone? Was it a third and, medium or third and long period where they, you try to bake in those to get ready for, the difficult situations the NFL presents? Those third and pass situations are the hardest because you lose any of that ability to conflict defenses with run and pass. You lose the play action element. That's harder than maybe a generic team period where you can bake in more, deception stuff of that nature, right? There's any number of periods happen in NFL practices where they're practicing situational football. Hey, 1st and 10s coming out. We're down inside the 10-yard line in the negative area, right? We're going to do 2nd and 8s. Again, you can have a little bit more complexity with your run pass. There's just varying degrees of difficulty based on the period that is being presented. And obviously, inside of those periods encourages quarterbacks to be more or less successful. And if you're going to go into like looking at statistics and even beyond just the generic stuff, like you talk to coaches who are like, hey, I want my guys to challenge windows and stuff like that and push the football downfield and try to see what they can and can't do. And taking away who's performing best based on the most basic statistics is a real waste of time. And I just think it creates a silly amount of false conversation. Sure. Are the Browns tracking this stuff too? Yeah, sure. They're tracking this stuff with an understanding of what every period is trying to accomplish for their guys. So like, as this stuff wraps up, and I think the media is doing some due diligence on trying to sort of parse out what is going on with the quarterback battle. Please keep that in mind as you see stats thrown out about maybe what a collective guy did in this period, that period. Did they complete it? Did they not? There are so many like, hey, this is a screen period. We're throwing running back screens and wide receiver screens only. And if you're charting that inside of a team period, you might not know that this is designed to give these guys, we're working on something other than the completion. That's not even the hardest part of the whole thing. So there's just a lot of stuff there. And again, a reminder that 3rd and 5th round picks are not going to get a ton of first team reps in the shorts and shirts period of the offseason. Even as it gets more serious in minicamp, those guys aren't going to get first team reps. Now, come training camp, when we're really in buckle down time to make decisions, and if those two rookies are playing well at that time and are really separating themselves and putting themselves in a position to be taken seriously, they'll get first team reps as the pads come on and real football gets here. But what they're trying to do in the OTA and minicamp sessions is learn. How can you take what we apply in the coaches' rooms, the meeting rooms, and apply it on the field? Are you smooth in the operations side? Like, it's just there's a lot of like mental stuff. Even though you're seeing physical things, it's so much more judging the mental side of things and making those young guys earn it. And the earn it portion is established now. And if the stuff pays off, it will be rewarded into training camp when they get a real chance. That's it. So I think you got to understand the Browns aren't cheating Shedeur. They're not cheating Dylan in any way. They're making guys who are selected in the 3rd and 5th round of drafts, just drafted, earn that, and it takes time to earn that. It will happen if it's supposed to happen, but it sure as hell isn't going to happen in OTAs and minicamp. Now, training camp, if Shedeur's lighting it up or Dylan is lighting it up, and you're like seeing this stuff constantly, and maybe a preseason game where they get out there and they light it up, it's like, okay, now is the time where if they're being serious and this guy is performing the way it looks publicly, even though you still don't know all the information privately about what's going on behind closed doors and what's going on in the huddle and the translation of information to all, complete the picture of what a quarterback does, they'll get their chance. That's what I'm saying. So take what we can. And I think we've covered as much here about what we have seen. I think both rookies had positives. I think it continues to be a situation where Joe Flacco's best suited right now as far as that goes. The veterans go. Pickett has had moments, but I'm going to be patient, see what I see in training camp when I go up there and watch it myself, and then obviously break down preseason games as well as I can for you. So I don't think there's anything that we know with certainty at this point. And I just wanted to kind of go about the stat stuff and remind you about all the elements that are missing from the stat recording stuff that has just all of a sudden popped up this year. And if they're not explaining this to you, people who are writing this stuff up in deep detail, that's a even further miscalculation of how to represent what's going on in Berea. So having said all that, I understand we want to understand more. We want to understand as much as we can about this thing. What direction is it heading? But it's not going to answer itself as quickly as you might hope it does. So let's get into training camp. I think there's positives in what these guys have learned, positives in what they have shown. And I look forward genuinely to what the shape of this whole thing will look like. All right. It's going to be a very interesting quarterback battle. Now, we have a guest finally to talk about Shedeur and a close experience with covering the Colorado football team and covering everything around, Deion's arrival and his son's arrival and what that looked like for 2 years, and some up close talks about what Shedeur is like on a personal level and those communication discussions as well. So Brian Howell's going to be our guest. I think he does really well here with illuminating us on what he learned in 2 years around them. He's been around the Colorado football program and athletics programs for a long time. He's a beat writer for BuffZone, and he does the Boulder Daily Camera work as well, where he is all over the beat for Colorado football and is a great source of information. So let's get over to that time with Brian right now. All right, finally, we get a chance to talk Shedeur Sanders with somebody who's covered him, knows him. Brian, we thank you for your time, man.
You bet. No problem. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so obviously Shedeur is, I mean, it's hard to compare with Cleveland stuff and quarterback arrival. I think this is sort of a bigger national discussion. It's at least on par with Baker Mayfield, but I think this tracks back to a college figure like Johnny Manziel. The way they're covered and the attention they garner is very similar. So talk to us real quick, if you can, Brian, as you introduce this. Like, those guys come from Jackson State, and I say those guys meaning obviously his dad and his teammates and all of them. And it's like a whirlwind. The program's down, they come in. Give me some of your early impressions of Shedeur, and we don't really need much on Deion so much as like how he sort of fits into that puzzle for you guys early.
Yeah, I mean, the first impression of Shedeur was the introductory press conference for Shedeur Sanders, and that right there was sort of it was unlike any press conference I've ever been a part of, because it was just a party, with all the donors, things like that, and but during that, Coach Prime is up there talking, and he has Shedeur stand up in the back of the room. Everybody kind of looks over and he goes, and that's my son. He goes, that's your quarterback. And so everybody's like, okay, all right. I guess Shedeur's coming with him. And so that's the first impression. But, he's just, you guys are starting to see it now. He's just a superstar. He's a celebrity, and that's the first taste I've had of covering a celebrity. It's way different than covering football, and so Shedeur's on a different level, and he's not been the most accessible quarterback that I've covered, and it's not his fault. That's just being a celebrity. And so it's been, I've enjoyed it. I like Shedeur, and I know we'll get into that, but it was covering a celebrity, and Coach Prime's the same way.
Yeah, I would say the thing that feels like his early impressions in Cleveland are, he has this the thing that comes with the celebrity stuff, and maybe again you get a little hatred that builds in people through sort of some jealousy or sort of what has he accomplished, right? And I think I'll put it to you to put into perspective. Yeah, maybe they didn't make the playoff and maybe they didn't make the biggest bowl, but you can attest to what they were able to accomplish there, despite what the national side of things tries to spin this as. It wasn't quite successful. The whole scope of things changed.
Yeah, I mean, to those of us that have been around, it was absolutely successful, and nothing short of a national title was going to satisfy everybody,
Yeah.
And they could have made the playoff and lost in the first round, and people would have been ripping out all them for things. The bowl game I'm wearing the hat for right now, but the bowl game did not go well. But a 9-win season, I mean, come on, 2 years before that, people weren't paying attention to Colorado, so I'm sure that they don't know that much about it. In 2022, I always say they were 1-11, that 1-11 team that wasn't as good as its record. And because the one win they had was after they had fired their head coach, they were 0-5, fired Carl Durrell. They had the bye week, and Cal comes in there, they weren't a great team either. But Cal has no idea what to expect because CU's got a whole new system coming in, and it's family weekend, so it's sold out, and Cal didn't know what to expect, and CU surprised them, and beat them on frankly a lucky touchdown that I don't know how it was a touchdown. I mean, to me it wasn't a touchdown, but it was in overtime, and they win that game. So that's their one win. I mean, their losses, they're getting blown out, and so here you are, 2 years later, you're a 9-win team that frankly, up until the final moments of the regular season, they were in the running for the Big 12 title. That was a wildly successful run for them. And yeah, they didn't win championships, things like that, but that was huge.
Yeah, I think that gets lost in the shuffle far too often when people talk about what they accomplished. But so many of these guys who come into programs at the college level are coming into established programs and then trying to build on success previous, where that was just a complete teardown rebuild. And we know what came with that, but I think it's good to hear from the inside. I will ask you this: he obviously comes in from the FCS level, and then he goes through a couple coordinators, right? So there are some offensive changes. It's not all consistent for him because in Cleveland we're very familiar with Pat Shermer, but it felt like there was some turmoil in that first year figuring out who they wanted to be offensively, then going into year two.
Yeah, and it goes back to Jackson, and I don't know the full story, but he ran through some coordinators at Jackson, and I don't know why that was the case. And but a couple of the early coordinators he had, it's not like there was bad blood because they're still on Colorado staff. I mean, they moved to Colorado with Coach Prime, and they're on Colorado staff as coaching other positions. So it's not like they just didn't get along and they kicked him out, and so but they brought in Sean Lewis that first year, who was highly regarded. I mean, when CU was doing that coaching search, Sean Lewis was near the top of the list for people, the people wanted as the head coach, and was a hot head coaching candidate and a bright offensive mind. And for whatever reason, they did not click. And by middle of the season, or shortly after the middle of the season, Sean Lewis has his play calling stripped, and Pat Shermer, who was just supposed to be an analyst, all of a sudden is calling plays the last 3 or 4 games. And so it was kind of a weird deal. I don't know why that didn't work out, and Sean Lewis left at the end of the season to go to San Diego State as the head coach. And then last year, by all accounts, everything we heard, Shermer and Shedeur got along really well, and their communication was fantastic. And Shermer kept talking about how much working with Shedeur and Travis really made him feel young again, and he just enjoyed working with those guys so much, and he gave them a lot of input into the offense. And so that relationship worked really well, and Shedeur and Travis both flourished with it.
Yeah, it's ironic, that connective tissue back to Cleveland where he ends up. I want to get to a little more of what you thought of the draft experience, but before we get to that, I think it's more fun to know. And you're dealing with, you mentioned this, a celebrity, so it's different. You might not be able to get that one-on-one time. You might not be able to get him pulled aside for a quote. Was there? And I'm not saying this is wrong. I'm just saying, like, in the nature of them being out there and in the bubble that they're in, was he hard to get? To be a bit more candid, or not putting on I'm not even trying to turn this down a weird road, other than, like, sometimes those guys who get in front, they know what to say, they know how to say it, they know how to be in the right way, because they just, he's come up in a media environment and all of that. But were there some times where you could get to learn a little more about the person? You could spend some time maybe hearing some personal stories that came along with it? I'm just opening it up to Brian, anything you have that, like, tells us more about Shedeur the person and your impression of him outside of what cameras zoom in on when they find him.
Yeah, not a lot. I mean, there wasn't a lot of interaction with him off camera. There was a few, and I really like him. Every interaction I had with him, I really liked him. One story I can tell you is there was a women's basketball game. I covered the women's basketball team after the football season, and Coach Prime and Shedeur would show up. His sister was on the team at the time, Shelamai, and so they would show up sometimes. And so it's a women's basketball game in January, and I see Coach Prime and Shedeur they come in, and obviously the whole arena goes nuts when they walk in, but they had one of the new offensive linemen that was with them. And so I was like, well, I want to go meet the offensive lineman. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm not going to bother Dion and Shedeur. And so I went over there and I met the new offensive lineman. We were chatting a little bit during halftime. And by the time I got done, I turned around and Shedeur was standing there, and he was coming off the 23 season where he finished the year injured. And, nobody knew a lot about his injury. And so he was standing right there and just kind of waiting for me to move out of his seat. And so I said, how you doing? He goes, great. And we ended up talking for a few minutes, and he was real personable. And, I wasn't going to bother him, but he was great. He didn't mind talking, and, told me how he was feeling and all that stuff. And I always liked talking to him. And really in front of the camera and press conferences, after he kind of settled in year one and he got to know who we were, he's great. I mean, he was real personable with us. And there was moments in press conferences that you could see, if you watch some of those, there's some funny banter that he and I would have. Like he would kind of joke with me on something I would say, sort of correct me, but in a joking way. And we'd kind of go back and forth. And I always liked him. Just a personable kid, very confident, but on a different level than his father.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Very fair. He's been really strong in his time with the media so far, and really trying to paint this image of who he is. Let himself get out in front of things rather than the perception get out in front of things. So he is obviously successful for 2 years. You talked about the injury a little bit, but obviously has a nice year last year. Are you and most folks out there surprised? It's kind of a two-part question. The pre-draft process buzz between what is being put out there from anonymous sources versus, his dad trying to refute a lot of what was said. But there's a huge disconnect here, Brian. I don't think anybody can ignore that. I mean, you spent most of the year arguing whether this kid was going second or third in the draft. Yeah. And all of a sudden he's falling into the fifth round. So what's the impression from those of you out there who were close to it, maybe not in the bubble, but you were close to the bubble as anybody, about how the hell this happens, that he ends up being a fifth round pick? What's your thought on that?
I mean, frankly, I was as stunned as anybody, if not more. I mean, wow. I think back to the pro day and, so much media. I mean, I remember Mary Kay, who covers the Browns, was out there in Boulder. Reporters from other teams have never been to Colorado's pro day before. And so there are reporters who cover other teams in the top 5 of that draft that were coming out to CU's pro day because they thought they were going to get these guys, and that they had a shot at Travis and Shedeur. It wasn't just Travis. And so everybody thought that. And you could see their camp sort of sense that things were falling a little bit, the way they would talk leading up to the draft, because it was always talk of, a lot of it coming from Coach Prime, that, hey, these are the top 2 players in the draft. And you got closer to the draft, and we were in spring ball at the time. Spring ball ended the week before the draft. And, Coach Prime started talking about, hey, if he falls, great. I mean, look at their situations. Lamar Jackson, he started bringing up some of these people that would fall. And so you started to sense maybe they're hearing things that he may fall a little bit, but by falling, we're thinking 20s. We're not thinking fifth round. And so, and frankly, covering the draft, I mean, I knew it was Travis, Shedeur, and then there was a few guys late round. And so my thought was, I'm going to cover the first round. Travis, Shedeur get picked on Thursday night. Friday, I've got nothing to do because there's no second and third round guys at Colorado. And then Saturday, I'll pick up those other guys. And I watched every second of the draft almost. And I'm like, I can't believe my weekend turned out this way. I mean, I just kept being stunned. I mean, the more he fell, the fact that I sat there and watched the entire night, Friday night, and saw him not get picked was just, I couldn't believe it. But frankly, I mean, we know how it works. If you're not picked in those first 3 rounds as a quarterback, they view you as a backup. And so, you knew he was going to fall farther at that point when he wasn't taken early. So it was surprising. It was very surprising.
There were certainly a couple of those picks in there, especially even the end of the first round, thinking Cleveland could move up and take him. So we'll close with this as I kind of match your surprise on this. But is your impression of him that he can come in and do this? Because obviously you watched him play, and the good and the bad that came with his efforts, and there was plenty more good than bad. But did you watch him play this year and think, okay, this guy's going to be a pretty good NFL quarterback? And does your opinion based on the way the NFL reacted to his eligibility change at all? Because obviously the Cleveland quarterback stuff has been a nightmare for 26 years now, and they are looking for somebody who's large enough to meet the challenge, and they're still searching. And I'm just curious, like his experience both at his first stop, rewriting that program, and coming into Buffalo and doing, Colorado, and doing what he did, probably helped prepare him for this. But this is a different animal, and I'm just curious if your like confidence has wavered in this a little bit, because maybe what we saw out here wasn't what the NFL was going to enjoy, or if you have a steadfast belief that he, over his 4 years of his first contract, will end up taking the job.
I think it's a twofold answer because my confidence in him has not wavered, but the way the NFL operates is different than any situation he's been in before, because now is the business of sports. And so by nature, Dylan Gabriel is going to get more opportunity than Shedeur, because they're going to give a third round pick more opportunity than Shedeur. And clearly the Browns, head coach and GM, all that, believed in Dylan Gabriel more than Shedeur. Right. I mean, you have to assume that based on where they drafted them. And so, and I don't know how they feel about Pickett. And obviously I think they like Joe Flacco enough. My sense all along from afar is that my prediction is Joe Flacco wins the job. And by some point in the season, Shedeur Sanders takes over, and I think he holds that job. I could see him being the quarterback in Cleveland for a long time. I believe in him fully. I think he's a good human being. All the stuff about him going to the schools, that's real. The stuff you're seeing him talking, saying the right things, that's real. That's not an act to try to save face from the draft. That's him. I think he's a great face for a franchise. I think he can handle New York. I think he can handle LA. He can handle Cleveland. He can handle Boulder, Colorado. And so I think he's fantastic. And I would be surprised if he's not a really successful quarterback in the NFL, whether it's Cleveland or somewhere else.
Okay. Well, listen, the Browns and this organization could use that solution. Given the nature of the pick slot and all of that stuff, it would just be a great outcome for him. So, Brian, I think you're going to be getting some more really talented players through there. So I do want to have a chance for people to find you, follow you. So tell them where they can find your work and all of that, if you can.
Yeah. On X, I'm at Brian Howell 33, and then website is dailycamera.com.
All right. Fantastic stuff. Follow Brian. Stay up on the Colorado program, which is continuing to rise even post Shedeur. I think they're going to be some fun players in that system. So, all right, Brian, thanks for your time, man, very much.
You bet. Thanks.
All right. A big thanks to Brian, and thanks to you guys for sticking around and giving me some patience with all the rookie introduction series stuff. I like to have those wrapped up sooner. Twitter has made it harder, and I guess X now has made it harder than ever to come up with contacting people. You can't message in the way I used to be able to message. I have tried a lot of different avenues. We were really fortunate to get some repeat people that have came on to talk with us, as Ben Bart's there with the LA Times. We had some great Michigan insight. If you missed these, I'm just kind of reminding you, John Jansen played in the NFL for a long time, really close to the Michigan program. Bill Landis gave us great insight on Quinshon Judkins. And we've just been able to do really, really well with this. I think I'm still missing a Harold Fannin one. So Bowling Green, the cut downs and budget and stuff has made it really hard to find someone close to Harold Fannin in his time there. So I'm going to search on that more. If any of you listeners know, let me know if you know somebody that would be good for that, because that is one that I have struck on out on several messages and emails. But I'm happy to get the Shedeur one done. We got really lucky with Will Stein, the OC at Oregon, being able to join us. So go check that one out if you missed it as well. But yeah, ultimately, I really love doing these, even if they're harder than ever to figure out the right people to talk to. But I hope you guys have enjoyed it as well. And we posted film rooms on all the rookies about thoughts on their performances and college stuff they bring to the NFL. And I promise I did one on Shedeur before the draft that was very detailed. I am going to pick a couple games of Shedeur and break that down and talk to you about some of the stuff I saw from the college tape too that I think would be fun. So that will be out there as well. Couple house cleaning reminders, 30% off from now until the end of the month for an annual subscription with us. If you know somebody that would be interested, now is the time to get in on that. Cheap price, great community we have. And if you're a daily podcast listener and you just want to give us a try, I really encourage it, because it does help. Everything we do, we return into the content that we're making. So I greatly appreciate any of you who come over and join us, very much so. I have, yes, knocked around some of the podcast being shortened and taken away, but I want to reward folks who do support the work and you enjoy it. I cannot thank you enough for that. And all of you who are subscribed, this is a dream for me and is really something I look forward to doing every day for you guys. So hopefully you are enjoying it as well. And I'm very excited about the second year and opportunities we have with this website inside the second year. So that's a wrap for today. Go to Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, follow us there. That would really help us grow those platforms, help more folks find us, and continue to grow a great Browns community. I look forward to talking with you guys on another show tomorrow. Until then, thanks for being here, and go Browns.